the part that Facebook played in the Rohingya massacre. I mean, that was just straight up social media. And so Facebook had dedicated an increasing amount of resources to safety, trust and safety, but 99% of those resources are in English because they know where their regulators are. They know where their risk is.
We can make a 75-year-old, relatively uneducated widow get her entitled pension without ever talking to a human being.
This is to have two people from the political world. You know, we've had Eric Daimler, who was the advisor to Obama, and we have Thiaga Rajan, who's the Science and Technology Minister of Tamil Nadu. He was earlier the Finance Minister, a very thoughtful politician. And so to have both of them on stage to look at how different democracies and countries are approaching technology and thinking about the policy around some of these very big issues that we've all been discussing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Thiaga Rajan and Eric Daimler.
Hi, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. Pitya, thank you very much for coming. I know you had a big conference yourself, which you were running, so to take time out to come for this is like deeply appreciated, and thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you for having me here, I said. Right. No problem. Yeah.
So, Peter, you kind of missed the back history of this, leading up to this, but there's been a lot of discussion about how different countries are approaching technology. And there is a sense, Sharad Sharma spoke earlier, and that India has a different approach to technology and how it should be deployed for populations. So can you tell us, is there, from your perspective, and you're in Tamil Nadu, one of the most industrial states, you're ushering new technologies in there, what is that difference in thinking from your point of view?
Well, I'm not that clued into the national strategy, to tell you the truth, though I was here a week ago and I met with Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the Minister of State.
I'm so sorry, I just can't, can you hear him at the back?
No, I said I was here last week and met with the Minister of State, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and he was talking about wheeling out some policies, but as of now, I'm not sure that there's a very clear national vision. But I can tell you in Tamil Nadu, I said this when I was in finance, and I say it now as the Minister for IT, that to me the great, the great value, the great confidence that this technology gives me is that the nature of government, which in my opinion is quite profoundly broken, can be substantively improved, and the interaction between government and citizens can be really taken to a different level through this technology. So, of course, there are risks and all that, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I'm hugely optimistic, and that's the two-day conference I've just run, was on the future of IT, and one of the six theme areas was AI and deep tech. And we had brilliant people from all over the world, CEOs of big companies and evangelists. And I'm just so excited about the possibility because I think we are so far behind where we need to be in terms of service delivery, in terms of citizen connect, that I actually see it as a very positive thing. The guardrails will be set by the government of India because it will have to be for the whole country. But at the state level, we have the great luxury of relatively high income, relatively high education, relatively high penetration. And so I think we can greatly improve the overall outcome for our people.
I'm just going to come back to, we had a session yesterday where a lot of the directors and creators were in a kind of AI denial. They said, this is not going to supplant us. This is just baby stuff. It's for mediocre workers being supplanted, but not masters. And when I first spoke to you, you had a kind of similar reaction saying that AI was not going to be a tectonic impact in India. So I'm going to come back to...
No, can I just add? I didn't say that it won't be a tectonic impact. I said the cost of processing today And the amount of, there's the politics of it, the queue for getting really powerful processors and the cost of it, and the amount of time it will take to digitize all the information we have and then to pass it so that machines can be trained. It's not going to happen overnight. It will take a generation. That's the only point I said. I didn't say it won't be a shift. I just said it won't happen overnight. It's not as if I release a model tomorrow and the world looks different, right? There's a lot of actual execution impediments and money that's going to be, and energy, right? We are barely keeping up with the energy demands of homes and industries. The amount of power that's going to be required to, run all these engines and computing power, that's not a small thing. That's all I meant. There are practical difficulties in the execution, even if the edge of technology is here, to scale that across the whole population will take a significant amount of time.
Right. Eric, today I'm going to speak to you in this other hat that you wear. We've been hearing through the day, and just the session before you, Tobias and I were talking about the serious harms that have arisen from social media, and that today technology companies are not just centers of wealth or centers of innovation. They're a political power, they're a social power, they're shaping the public collective of trans-border countries, and yet I'll come to something so specific as this social media. There's a great awareness even within Congress that social media companies are harming societies with these kind of addictive behaviors that it is well aware of, So help us understand, and you were in the Obama administration, it was already happening then, it's accelerated now. What's stopping, a great celebrated democracy like America turning off this clock?
The power of American lobbyists. It's a quick, it's an easy answer.
You say things in the most deadpan way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, we know about this danger for many years, and it's gotten worse in many respects. I mean, the obvious example we have in the tech community is the Facebook's, the part that Facebook played in the Rohingya massacre. I mean, that was just straight up social media. And so Facebook had dedicated an increasing amount of resources to safety, trust and safety, but 99% of those resources are in English because they know where their regulators are. They know where their risk is. And this is what has allowed them, to some extent, to avoid the cost of their software on society.
Right. So help us understand this, that when you're saying lobbyists have a lot of power in the American system, but having children cuts across all political parties. So is there no bipartisan opinion building up at all about turning off something as simple as addictive behavior, likes, notifications? No one's saying to turn off the connectivity, but to, Tobias used a really nice phrase about overheating, this overheated social connection that's been created. Are you just saying it's that tough to do it?
I am encouraged.
And aren't there also wealthy lobbyists on the other side?
They are outmatched in the amount of resources available to them.
Yeah, that's because one company is more rich than all of India, which is the 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
So,
there are some well-meaning people working to do some good work in this regard, and there's been legislation suggested based on the work that they've done. I'm encouraged by the most recent hearings in the U.S. Congress that suggest that we might be able to implement something, but we don't know in the current dysfunction in Washington.
Right. PTR, I wanted to come to you to ask that in the near term, you mentioned this government-citizen interface. What are some of, let's just stay within Tamil Nadu, if not for the entire country, what are some of the ways in which you are thinking of deploying AI? What are the really positive uses that it can be put to? And what are some of the harms that, seeing the whole global situation already, are there ways that you all are already thinking about it?
Maybe I should separate this into the role of government as providing services for citizens and marshalling resources and redistributing them effectively. And then what happens outside of the government's control, like social media or politics, or, those kinds of things. The government has a very clear but limited role. It's a regulatory kind of body, it is an enforcement, it's a compliance. those things are very hard to do at a state level. I mean, if it's criminal, then it's easier to say it's the responsibility of my police. But if it's the guardrails or the kind of, systemic speed breakers or other things that have to be put in, those have to come at a national level. Those are not things that we can regulate. But if I come on this side of the fence, 30 years ago almost, my doctoral studies were in kind of understanding human cognition and how we could better design computer interfaces to make it easier for people to interact. And I was struck because somebody sent me a video as part of this conference I had yesterday, day before, of Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. And he says, I'm going to say something opposite of what everybody says. He says, in this age of AI, everybody's saying, teach your kids how to do programming. They have to learn how to use computers and all this stuff. So I'm saying the exact opposite. Our job is to make the machines understand the people. So you teach your kids how to do farming, how biology should be advanced, how some special field, you give them domain knowledge. And I recently took my son on a college tour, and I was at my old school in Boston. And, tech school of all tech schools, right? MIT is supposed to be the most tech school. And I was so surprised to hear them tell my son, and as part of the group, you have to take 5 courses in the humanities in the first year, otherwise you won't get a degree from you. It could be nuclear engineering, you still have to do the humanities courses, right? So if anything, the role of AI is that we have made the machines understand people, or we will have eventually when we have enough computing power equitably accessible throughout. And therefore in the government, our job is to remove these bottlenecks. I mean, being a minister, I'll still ask a very delicate question. How many of you have enjoyed your experience going to a government office to get some certificate or form or license? Right? I mean, this is the wonderful opportunity for us to eliminate so many of these mundane, random, interferences. Incidentally, the average vacancy rate in the government allocated staffing positions across the country, take a guess. Not just Tamil Nadu, government of India, government of, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, 40%. 40%. We can't afford to pay any more people than we pay already. And so even taking up the bulk of our resources, we're still running 40% vacancies. This cannot be done by human beings anyway. Now if we get the machines to do what human beings should easily do, I mean, even on the spectrum already, right? You start with going from physical to e-service centers to low-code, no-code models that can actually process right through to the end, then start tagging individuals. Now you can, both yesterday and today, post my conference, I had meals with the CEOs of 2 major companies that are in the AI space, Sprinkler and Unifor. And these are the exciting possibilities we see, that were we to actually digitize enough of our content and put in, the processes that we really intend by the state's design, we can make a 75-year-old, relatively uneducated widow get her entitled pension without ever talking to a human being. That's the possibility that comes. So, that's really the huge opportunity we see.
I guess we're going to need, some different order. I don't know what kind of person can think this through, but these are such fascinating problems. You're saying that government just cannot grow any further. It's too expensive to hire any more human beings. It's still, 40% you said is going into that. But at the same time, you have
I'm saying 40% vacancy.
Vacancy.
And the state's resources, depending on which state you're looking at, somewhere between 60 and 80% of the state's own revenues goes to salaries and pensions of government workers. The state perpetuates itself first before it does anything else. So,
right. Yeah. No, but the question I was going to pose to you is that at the same time in India, there's just a towering employment problem that's going on, And here now even government is thinking of automating and for efficiencies.
No, but the government was never going to be, I mean, the government...
Job creator.
Yeah, no, just think about the scale. The state of Tamil Nadu, I don't know what the population is because we haven't had a census in like 13 years, but roughly 75 million people, let's say. Out of 75 million people, the voter list is about 60 million people. The workforce is estimated somewhere around 35, 37 million people, active workforce, right? And Tamil Nadu is one of the states where women participation is very high. After that, it's only about 37 million or something like that. How many government jobs are there? Direct government jobs, 950,000. 950,000 out of 30 odd million, right? Another 7.5 lakhs or 750,000 retirees or something. And then you take all the ancillaries, the PSUs and this and that and the boards and the local bodies and all that. Let's generously say it's double. The state was never the employer of like last resort. It was a slice. That slice is constrained economically. I don't think that improving the quality of government services anyway reduces the future employment potential of the state. You know, the real economy creates the jobs. Right? That's where we got to focus on what the impact of these things will be.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. Eric, I wanted to ask you, you said about the government and that conversation finished in one line because it was that the lobbyists are doing this. I don't know how to pursue that further. Let's come to the markets, you know, where Tobias and I were just talking, and that's kind of echoed right through the conference, that, well, the desire to make profits is driving a lot of this at breakneck speed, you know, and you yourself admitted that that's the primary motive for a lot of the ways in which AI is being deployed, and naturally. But again, the markets don't exist outside of human beings running those markets, and I think it's time to give up on that construct. So I'd like your response to, right now, just the social media companies, because we're just coming out of that session, where if we know that there's this harm being done, government has got lobbyists, what's your answer to why the companies won't do it then?
Companies will resist automation often because they're
No, not automation, where they know that the algorithms are creating social harm, but they won't turn it off.
Oh, why are we creating social harm? The profit motive, you know, these are easy answers. Yeah, straight up. You know, I can say that you know, there's a lot of factors that we experience at play with many of these companies not wanting to change their trajectory. That Facebook is not my expertise, but it's just I'm closely connected professionally, I guess, to some of these people. You know, Facebook had recommendations to reduce the harm to their users, especially teenage girls, and it was rejected at the leadership level for whatever reason. And you can imagine it's a profit motive. I mean, it's not terribly complex. They're going to be forced by government. That's really the only way. They're not going to be self-motivated to correct these issues.
You know, someone else called me naive. Maybe I'll accept that adjective, but I'm just trying to wonder how you get to have that much power, both in government and in markets, and then have such a helpless reaction to something which is impacting people, like millions of people, to say, oh, it's a profit motive, oh, it's a lobbyist, and then have no agency in that situation. How is one supposed to understand that?
I mean, this is just the nature of politics, at least in America. That is the tension, and we try to bring urgency to this issue and the harms being done, especially to teenage girls, in one particular case. And we're making some progress that I'm personally optimistic about. But the sort of damage that can be done it expresses itself in a lot of different ways. In decreased productivity and the bloat of government, we experience this quite a bit. You know, one of our clients is in Europe, I said that our automation has a 200-to-1 labor compression on automating many of these tasks. One of our customers is an electric utility in the Netherlands that experiences this sort of productivity boom, and that sort of cost recapture is just nothing but benefit to the Dutch people. Yeah. But there's resistance for the rest of Europe. The benefit would be hundreds of millions of euros of savings every year, hundreds of millions. But that is at the cost of people's jobs that are currently doing it manually. So the point is that this dynamic is just all over the place. So there's a lot of people kind of resisting change. That's human.
Right. I just wanted to pose it here, that if the two of you were in a room together without an audience watching, what's the first conversation you all would have?
I'm not sure, but can I just pick up on the point that Eric said about the job loss, right? So there's technology is historically done one of two things. Sometimes it has enhanced productivity, increased the rate of growth and the scale of the economy so much that actually more employment happens, right? Like you think about steam and the first industrial revolution, electricity, second industrial revolution. One of my professors at business school, who's now gone to Stanford, I think, Eric Brynjolfsson, he says every time IT innovation came about, people were wringing their hands and saying it's going to eliminate jobs, eliminate jobs. But most of the time what it did was increase productivity and increase the rate and scale of the economy so much that actually created jobs, right? So this is equivalent in some sense, I think. If you're talking about mundane jobs that could be automated, then there's a social discussion to be had. About 10 years ago, I was driving with my sons in Scandinavia, and suddenly you see these signs when you enter into Norway from Sweden, and it says you'll have to have all these things in place because toll collection will only be done automatically. I'm saying like 10 years ago. And when I was talking to my friends about it, after I went in, they said, it's because philosophically we decided that it is not the right kind of role for an educated human in an advanced society to be sitting at the road collecting money. This is just not, in our culture, this is not an appropriate job for a human being to do. Therefore, we automated it in a way. So, all the way from that kind of automation as a part of your culture or your political understanding of the economy to automation. If you're worried about job losses, let me put it a different way. I used to be a consultant in the US when I was a grad student, and I used to go to all these auto factories and OEM suppliers. That industry has completely been decimated. Where there used to be 100 human beings working in a car factory, there are probably 10 now. The rest is all robotic. That's what real job elimination looks like. If you look at what I'm saying for government, at least in our government, I'm telling you there's a 40% vacancy. It's not like there's, a lot of people who are going to be laid off. I'm saying most people have great job security. And if there's a slowdown in the hiring, it's because we can't afford to pay any more people. It's not because, we are getting the work done faster. Right. And as I say, all of us have experience that it's not like the services are being delivered on time, smoothly, without any rent seeking, without any complexity, with all the records perfectly clean right now. So I don't see any downside at all in applying these kinds of technologies. I only see, at least for the foreseeable future, I only see upside. Maybe the losses will come, but not anytime soon, right?
Right. So over there, I wasn't only talking about the government as an employer. Yeah. As a political leader, I'm sure you're thinking about this whole employment problem because it's coming, and everyone has their own justifications. But the truth of the matter is that there is no, people used to earlier say, set up industry, set up manufacturing. All of that is automated. With AI coming, there's going to be, even more, less human interfacing. So as political leaders, how are you thinking about employment and how are human beings going to be deployed?
See, I look at it slightly differently, right? I don't think any technology is so affordable and so scalable now that you're going to see mass layoffs across all industries, service industries, manufacturing, office jobs, all of that. Maybe I'm just not up to speed on it, but not even in America, let alone in India or Africa or other places. But I see it a different way. Actually, the world has now got a labor shortage problem. I'm not talking India, I'm saying globally. You look at India is now something like 1/6 of the population of the world, right? You take out all the aged people and aging people in the advanced economies where the birth rates have fallen a lot, and now including China. And if you look at the current working age population and those likely to come in the next 20 years, one generation, India is maybe like 1/5 or 1/4. So the world actually needs a lot of labor. I travel constantly to countries like Australia or Singapore or the US or other places. The US happens to draw so many migrants that it doesn't have a labor problem. But you look at the rest of the world, from nurses to hotel staff to teachers to you take any field, there's actually not enough human beings. And many of these things are quasi-manual work. It's very hard to replicate a nurse, right? I mean, yesterday, one of the speakers at my conference was General Officer Commanding of the Dakshin Bharat area. And he said, no machine's ever going to replace a soldier. A soldier's still going to be needed, right? So I think this notion that somehow we are headed into a cliff where suddenly there's not going to be need for human beings, I just don't see that happening. I think, at least in a global economy, our job as politicians, as policymakers, is to create a workforce, and that's my chief minister has been saying that for 2 years, that he wants Tamil Nadu to be the human resource capital of the world. Some of it will be work coming here because we have brilliant people and they come and invest. Some of it will be work done because our economy scales up and we create more demand and more consumption here. Some of it will be out-migration temporarily, and they'll come back and do better things. Some of it will be permanent out-migration. That's happening whether we like it or not, right?
I mean, this is a very long conversation and we are running out of time, but as much as you said there's a lack of human resource, but it is also an unemployability problem because
completely
there's no
agree.
skilling, and this thing is moving so fast. I don't think even coders will know how to code fast enough to keep up with the machines. So, I mean, there's an employability problem because there isn't a skill. I mean, there isn't enough skill. There is human beings out there.
I could take that. When I was in the White House, there was an argument that I think captured most people's imagination, which is the debate between technology losing jobs or potentially creating jobs was really beside the point. Because the main argument, the main conclusion really was that it was probably neutral. It's just that for the individual, they may experience some heavy disruption in their job. So as a society, we may all be better off, but the individual may feel it very differently. I can share some degree of optimism here that we have never automated jobs that we want to do.
Which we tried to, we couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, we automate the jobs we don't want to do, right? And what the jobs that may be created, I can say this one last thing, because we're talking about the jobs being displaced and to square the circle about higher skilled jobs. That's exactly where jobs will be created, but that's maybe not necessarily good news. We need more experts. And so to use an example from the Boeing 737 MAX, multiple disasters, we needed more aerospace engineers. We're going to automate some of this back-end engineering that today is manual, but we need more of the people that are going to encode the facts around the dynamics of the airplane.
Eric, I think this again is like a very easy getaway because I've been hearing this repeatedly that people are saying, oh, we are automating jobs that we don't want to do, but Eric Daimler is never going to be the guard and Eric Daimler is never going to be the driver. So, we are just assuming that these are jobs that people don't want to do. Maybe they don't want to do it, but they don't have any other job to do either. And it's not like you're replacing them from being guards and drivers and then giving them an MIT education to become the next coder,
But that's my point. My point is that because AI and the development of computing capability and data and the machine's ability to learn and understand human beings is going so rapidly, you don't need to learn programming languages. You need to be able to ask the right kinds of questions. You need to understand human psychology. You need to understand logic. You need to understand rhetoric. NASSCOM, the local chairman, is Rajesh Nambiar of Cognizant, and we had him at some Government of Tamil Nadu event, and he said, do you know what the most commonly used programming language in the world is today and is going to be? And everybody said X and Y, and he said, no, English. He said, right now, everybody is doing prompt engineering for how to make these machines learn. So they have to ask the right questions to be able to learn. And that's in English. What about in Tamil? What about in Hindi? What about in Kannada? So in my view, it's actually going to be a lot easier to train somebody to be successful in the world of AI than when I used to teach how to make simulation models as a grad student 20 years ago. They had like heavy coding on one particular language, on one particular model, on one particular... If that went out of style, they had to start over again. Now they don't have to, right? The machine will adapt. So I actually think it's going to be much easier to train people. Of course, you have to train them, and you have to train them in the right things. But it's going to be much easier to skill people in a new paradigm than it was in the old paradigm.
I just wanted to put out that one of the speakers we would have liked to get is from Karya, because there's a huge invisible presence here in this whole conference about technology, which is that they are data workers in some of the most impoverished spaces, you know, who are actually labeling and feeding the data into the machines. And they're completely invisible, and they're in fact having a lot of mental trauma because they're having to sift through so much of stuff and very poorly paid. And then there's this now a model that Karya is following, where, you know, I may be wrong and I wish they'd been here, but they said that they're actually sharing 30% of what they earn with the workers, and they're still making a lot of money. You know, so when we're talking about these markets as existing outside of the construct of human intention, I wish they'd been here to show that there are other ways. You know, there are other ways of sharing. It is human intentionality, and I don't think that the market exists outside of the people who run the market. You know, so because they're not here, I just wanted to put their point out. Eric, I just want to end with you. Assuming that you worked with President Obama, that I would have assumed that you're a Democrat. You know, maybe you're not. Are you?
The role I played was a science advisor. So we were actually a non-political. We weren't. I was not in the West Wing.
But in America, you all declare your politics always, right? So what are you?
No, there were Trump voters within. Not today. They recanted. But at the time, there were Republicans in the science advisory group.
I like the distancing device that you've created. They were, but
yeah. I mean, I am a fierce moderate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but the reason I was asking that was not to be intrusive, but to say that when we're talking about these kind of employment problems and, you know, this, the detritus of what all is going on in technology, and again, I'm putting all the positives are there, we are discussing the negatives because those are more thorny, that there is also then a very angry population building up that are seeing jobs taken away, that's feeling vulnerable, emotionally angry, contagious emotions, and we have a, you know, popular, demagogic political leader like Mr. Trump, who's able to feed into that. And there's a strong sense that American politics has been broken. You have January 6th, you know, unprecedented in American politics. So there's real-time fallouts of social and political fallouts of these technologies. So in that context, and with you heading into another American election, would you have a different take on how these technologies need to be humanized?
I think there is a large segment of the population that is in danger of falling behind even further. And this disruption that we experience when individuals lose their jobs, regardless of the magnificent productivity increases and wealth increases that we're all going to have in our companies and sometimes our governments, the individual experience may be a complete dislocation of their sense of being, and that gives rise to this nationalist populism. And I wish I knew the cure for that. Yeah.
Let's just leave it open as a jungle of things to address, and thank you very much for articulating those. We have 2 more riveting sessions. Do stay with us. Thank you very, very much for being with us. Thank you.